How's it going, everyone, and welcome to this week's Q&A. So if you want a chance at one of your questions being answered, make sure you drop that question in the comment section down below. I may not always answer that question in a video, or I may be working on a video on that question or topic just for that exact topic. I might also answer that question that you have right in the comment section if it's like a short, quick, answer to that question that you may have. So with that being said, guys, let's go ahead and get started with the first question, which is, what do I think about the pricing of the new Acura Integra Type S? And I believe that it is a little bit more than I anticipated. I thought it was going to be somewhere around 48, 49 grand. And I thought that would have been a nice jump from the Type R and kind of in the middle of the Type R and the TLX Type S. Now it's coming in at 52 grand or so. And I still think it's an okay price, and I absolutely would get it. And I probably will, in addition to the TLX, sometime in the next year or two. We'll see how everything goes, of course. But at the end of the day, if it's priced at MSRP, or if you somehow get it underneath MSRP, I think it is a decent price. It's still a little bit on the higher end. Although once you go past that and you start paying markups, that's when I think the car really is a little bit excessive. And at that point, you're talking TLX Type S price range, which is, of course, a different segment, but it's a lot more car, in my opinion, a lot more luxury, it's all-wheel drive, so it's 10-speed automatic, which usually is a little bit more expensive. I know that's a deal breaker for some people, but it really depends. I'm not going to go into crazy detail, but I do think it's a little bit higher than I anticipated myself. Although, if you could get one at MSRP versus paying 5 or 10 grand over the Civic, then that kind of takes the Civic out of the question, obviously. So we'll see how the market kind of goes, but I know people are willing to pay some sort of a markup already, which is crazy because, like I said, at that point, you could just be hopping into a TLX Type S, which is a lot more car. All right, so the next question, at what point do you start looking at thermostats and coolant hoses? So Honda thermostats and hoses typically hold up very, very well. Up until like 60, 75,000 miles, it's probably not even a question if it needs it, unless if you're in some extreme weather, being really hot or really, really cold. So sub 30s for most of the year, or post like 120s, or somewhere like in Arizona or stuff like that with extreme heat, or your car just idles a lot, then I would look at that earlier. We really don't see too many water pump failures at all. Obviously, if you're doing a time belt, that'd be the right time to do it. Now, if your car is a timing chain, the pump is external, so you could just kind of keep an eye on it and look for some sort of leaks from the seepage hole or the weepage hole, whatever you want to call it. Until that point, I wouldn't even bother changing it, but you do want to keep an eye on it. 60,000 miles and above. And like I said, not many fell. Once you start creeping into 120,000, it's probably a good idea to get the hoses replaced, at least the two radiator hoses, and you just squeeze them. If you hear any brittleness or anything like that, then obviously you want to change it at that point. If not, you can kind of play by ear. If you do see some coolant starting to seep around the hoses, then obviously that's a good time to change them as well. So I hope that answers that question for you. Okay, so another question is, do we or should people be replacing rotors with pad replacement at every brake job? And the answer, in my opinion, is no on most cars. So typically we could get about 2 cuts out of them, depending how aggressive you are. If you use aftermarket pads, they usually beat up the rotors a little bit more, so you might need replacement of the rotors at that point. If not, then 9 out of 10 times, you're going to be able to resurface the rotors probably 2 times before they start becoming too thin. And, they would need replacement just by the fact that they're too thin and out of spec. So again, case by case situation, you should definitely be able to get at least 1 cut out of them, even if you're on the more aggressive side. Now, if there's tons of hot spots, you may not be able to cut those out, not at a safe level. So at that point, yes, you would need some sort of a rotor replacement, probably, every service or every other brake pad replacement. So it's kind of a case by case, but in most situations, I think the average consumer, 90% of the people out there, you could definitely get at least 2 cuts out of it. I know aftermarket shops like to replace rotors out of the gate, which is fine as well. I would just use OEM pads. They seem not to squeak or, anything like that as much as the aftermarket stuff. So, yeah, with that being said, I think that for sure you can get 1 to 2 cuts out of it without being extremely aggressive. And you should be safe with that and try to save your money in that perspective. And I've had a great success with resurfacing rotors. And I know a lot of people kind of shy away from that because rotors are fairly priced nowadays, but that price is typically because the metal is inferior, and then you'll get some sort of premature wear on that end. So hopefully that answers your question for you. All right, so this comment came from somebody asking how come I'm always doing lower ball joints and not upper ball joints, so the lowers fail more. And of course, this is on a double wishbone suspension, which has an upper and lower control arm, not a McPherson type that only has a lower. So obviously, if you don't have an upper, it's not going to wear out. But 9 out of 10 times, yes, we're doing just the lowers. Very rarely do we do uppers, and we're not going to change them unless they're either the boot is torn, it's dry rotted and making noise, or it has play. So typically, the lower ball joints on that era of Hondas wore out very, very quickly. We're talking about 20 to 30,000 miles. As the cars progressed in design and stuff like that, the ball joints became bigger and they seem to have withstand a lot more abuse. So, in the early to late 90s, we were doing ton of ball joints on those years. So not that I was working on those cars back then. I'm not that old, guys. But when I started with Honda back in 08, obviously those were majority cars we were seeing, the late 90s, early 2000s, stuff like that. And we were doing probably in between the shop, maybe like 5 to 6 sets a day. And yeah, the lower ball joints just they take most of the weight of the car and a lot of wear and tear. So and not that the boots are torn or anything like that. They were just having wear and a lot of play. And when we checked them with the pry bars, there was a ton of play. And for that reason, we were changing those. And if the uppers don't have any play, there's no reason to change them. And the upper arms are included with the ball joint. You couldn't really get them separate. So, we're not going to just change stuff, or at least I'm not going to change parts just to change them if there's no reason to. There's no play, there's the ball joints aren't torn once again, and there's no creaking or anything from the upper ball joint from being out of grease. There's no reason to change them and cost the customer extra money, obviously. So, yeah, with that being said, once again, we're just going to do the lowers. 9 out of 10 times, they're going to have most of the weight on them and just wear out more prematurely than the uppers. All right, so this next question is, how do we distinguish a wheel balance issue versus an axle vibration issue? And that's pretty easily. Axle vibration usually starts in moderate to heavy acceleration, and you can kind of notice it around 20 to 30 miles per hour, all the way, past 60, 70, 80, 90, whatever it may be. And the minute you let off the throttle, the vibration goes away. So that right there tells you it's a drivetrain, transaxle, axle issue, or even a drive shaft issue. So if you're accelerating moderate to heavy acceleration and you're having a heavy vibration, and the minute you let off the throttle, that vibration decreases or goes away, then that kind of distinguishes that. When it's a wheel balancing issue, you're gonna notice mostly the vibration between like starting at 55 to 65, 70, and before that or after that window, there is no vibration. So if you're having that vibration, then that most likely is a wheel balancing issue at that point. And if you get the wheels balanced, then that should take care of that. Now you could also have a bent rim situation or tire out of round with a shifted belt, and that's going to give you a vibration at any speed. And the more you increase in speed, then the more you're going to feel that vibration. So a couple different ways to tell. I did make a video on an axle vibration issue. I'll try to link it in the description below if you want to take a look at that. And I go into detail of what exactly causes it in the inner axle joint. So if you want to take a look at that, you can go ahead and take a look. Once again, I'll have it in the description below. All right, so the last question for this week's video is, at what point do I tell a customer that is no longer a smart option to invest into their vehicle? And I actually have a perfect example. I've been working on 03 Accord for about 3 to 4 weeks now. Yes, 3 to 4 weeks. And came in with a shifting concern. So I go and test drive it, which is another video I'm going to be making on why, as a technician, you should be test driving every car. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. Anyway, so I go test drive the car. I get stuck. I call the guys. Luckily, I'm just around the corner. They come and push me back to the shop. Obviously, the car needs a transmission at this point. So I do my multi-point inspection, which is a video inspection at this point, which is great. And I tell the guy it needs a transmission. By the way, you also need a couple different things. Actually, the left front, a padded rotor or metal to metal. So obviously needs pads, rotors, caliper, etc. Car's got a lot of miles. It's over 20 years old and just needs a lot of work. So at this point, I tell the customer, you know, it needs a transmission. Obviously, a new one is out of the question. We could try to source a new one, but you probably should walk away from the car at this point before, you know, we get into a little bit of a rabbit hole here with transmission replacement. So, of course, the customer agreed to repair the vehicle, you know, against my professional opinion. And I go ahead and put the transmission, and the new used transmission was no good. So I go and test drive it. And once again, I didn't get stuck, but car was shifting in and out of gear, neutral drop and stuff like that. Every time I approach a stop sign, it would rev before it would take off, etc. So trans was no good. I replaced the trans with another used transmission from the junkyard, and customer just came back saying that it's having shifting issues again. So once again, I test drive it, and sure enough, it's having shifting issues. After I test drove it initially, it was fine, but he drove it for a week or so, and here we are again with shifting issues. So we're going on trans number 3, and point of the story is, even if we get a good trans, which I don't know if it's going to happen at this point, it's hard to find a used transmission on a vehicle that old. But the car still needs a ton of work. God forbid the guy goes and gets T-boned or something like that, or goes, you know, the car gets flooded or whatever the case may be. He's never going to get his money back, and he would have been better off investing that money into a new car or a used car that has that was in better condition, you know, maybe like a 2010, 2015, something like that. Obviously something within his budget and his means. But here we are. So yeah, about once a week or so, I do tell people, unfortunately, I think it's best option for them to get out of the vehicle. But some people do listen, some people don't. And, you know, all depends on their situation. And, you know, obviously finances play a lot in the role of their decision making. But yeah, unfortunately, once a week or so. And I feel like being honest is the best thing. And if you want to go ahead and proceed with the job, then that's on you. But I told you my opinion and what I think you should do. Not that I'm trying to shy away from work, but I kind of could smell, you know, what's cooking. And unfortunately, 9 out of 10 times I'm correct, even though if it's something that's not something that the customer wants to hear, but it is for their best interest. So yeah, you just got to be smart. And if somebody's telling you, hey man, you know, you need 5, 6, 7 grand worth of work and the car's not worth half of that, then you should probably either A, do the bare minimum, or B, just look into investing into something new. Maybe try to get rid of that car. Somebody will buy it, try to flip it, whatever the case may be. And you could just move on into something that's going to be worth investing your money into. So once again, guys, thanks for watching. Make sure you guys drop a comment down below, and make sure you guys definitely ask some questions so we could kind of keep this going. And I feel like this is helpful to a lot of people, and a lot of questions will be answered that I really won't make a video towards. So that being said, guys, thanks for watching, and have a good one.